So next, I'm pleased to welcome Andrea Rocca, Head of Policy and Advocacy at Transparency International, to share his remarks.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Alex, and through you, thank you to everyone in the World Justice Project for having convened us for these 3 very interesting days. Now, you starting, and many speakers as well mentioned about the need to work together and build bridges and breaking the silos. And to me, this is really, really evident reading the Warsaw Principles, the Declaration. There are 2 principles in particular that speaks directly to corruption and that way more relevant to the work of Transparency International. Principle 5 on promoting integrity and accountability to eliminate corruption, and Principle 9 on enabling a business environment. However, these are not the only 2 principles that speak and directly relate to the work of Transparency International. Speaking directly to our work are also Principle 1 on institutional checks and balances, Principle 3 on civic space, which has become a strategic priority for the TI movement in our strategy 2030 out of necessity, and Principle 4 on fundamental human rights, which are particularly affected because of corruption, Principle 6 on people-centered justice, Principle 8 on advancing rule of law for sustainable development and environmental protection. Now, the declaration resonates in its entirety with us, and we are wholeheartedly endorsing it. Now, how does Transparency International contribute to the implementation of the principles? Now, at the core of our work is holding powers to account, particularly to ensure the public resources are used for the common good and sustainable development, and they are not lost to corruption. We will work to strengthen anti-corruption safeguards through the entire public financial management cycle, from resource mobilization and debt and sanction to budgeting and expenditure, including clean public contracting. And we work and support the work of oversight institutions, particularly supreme audit institutions and anti-corruption agencies. And we support in trying to foster better and more effective collaboration between them and civil society. Now, a side note though, we all agree that it is important to fight corruption, and I very much endorse as well the call out to the Polish presidency for their leadership, not just in rule of law, but also in the efforts around the negotiation of the EU draft anti-corruption directive. Other member states have not shown the same leadership and commitment, and as of yet, because of the opposition of some member states, the Council and the European Parliament have not yet agreed on the text of such a fundamental instrument that will strengthen the fight against corruption in Europe. Now, we this morning heard about investigative journalists, the Pandora paper and the Panama Papers and the many other leaks. These are fundamental to our work, and we continue our partnership and support to investigative journalists who expose corruption and expose the loopholes that are used in particular for cross-border grant corruption. Continue our work for beneficial ownership, transparency, and encouraging the action of law enforcement and cross-border cooperation. But corruption is not just paying a bribe. We need to work more to strengthen shields for policymaking against undue influence. In this regard, we are working this year with supportive governments towards a resolution to be tabled at the Conference of State Parties in December of the UNCAC, the UN Convention Against Corruption, on political finance. And we are also working for better integrity measures in climate negotiation, particularly better conflict of interest and anti-corruption and undue influence safeguards within the UN FCCC and COP. There was mentioning of collective action, and indeed without businesses we can't win the fight against corruption. We continue to promote the implementation of a tested model that Transparency International has been using for years in many countries, the Integrity Pact. There is a tool that brings together government, civil society and businesses to fight corruption in public contracting and safeguard investments in sustainable development. We need this involvement. We also need enforcement. and it is imperative the legislation against foreign bribery that in some countries is being undermined continue to be upheld by the countries that have it. And last point, we are committed to address barriers to access to justice, particularly by marginalized communities, addressing the nexus between corruption and human rights, ensuring access to legal information and legal assistance through our network of over 60 legal advice centers, which support about 10,000 cases every year. Now, my time is up. I'll just add one thing, though. We need also be mindful of how the transparency arguments and anti-corruption measures are often abused against civil society and to restrict civil space. And we will certainly call out when this is the case. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Thank you for reminding us about the interconnectedness of these principles and obviously for your leadership and the leadership of Transparency International in fighting corruption and reminding us of the risks as well.